First up, I'm going to be going through Iowa State's combine, NFL combine participants, and doing a draft, kind of a quick draft profiling each of them, just kind of show what scouts seem to be seeing about them, where they might go in the draft, things like that. Because Iowa State has 5 of them in the NFL combine this year. First up is Jaylin Noel, who came out. He came out as a 3-star prospect out of the Kansas City area, and was an immediate starter at Iowa State, played all 4 years as a starter, caught balls from Brock Purdy his freshman year, Hunter Deckers his sophomore, and Rocker Beck his junior and senior year. Was a special teams player, especially later on in his career at punt returner and kick returner. And really just from day one was on the field making plays and showed to be a guy you want to get the ball in his hands and let him work from there. And then he really, really took off his junior and senior season after Rocco got there. And he seemed to, look to Jaylin as his guy. Brock Purdy had Charlie Kohler and Xavier Hutchinson, and early he had Hakeem Butler. But, so every quarterback finds their guy. Jaylin Noel, at least to start, was Rocco's guy. Now, obviously, Jayden Higgens, who we'll talk about here in just a little bit, also had a really nice 2 years in names. But Jaylin Noel put together one of the more impressive 4-year careers at Iowa State for any wide receiver ever, really. Left, I believe, in the top 5 in catches. Had a big season this past season, eclipsed 1,000 yards, and really turned into, it was the half of one of the best, if maybe not the outright best, wide receiver duos in the country. Not necessarily best individual receiver, but as far as most productive duos in the country, Iowa State's Jayden Higgens and Jaylin Noel are right up there. And he has played himself into an interesting conversation as far as the draft goes. So Jaylin Noel is a really interesting prospect. He's a little bit smaller. He's about 5'10", 5'10", 200 pounds, 190 to 200, 210, somewhere in there. Not a huge guy, but he is a prototypical slot receiver. He's a guy that you can just get him the ball in space, maybe in a screen. But he has shown that he showed a lot of ability the last 2 seasons to really stretch the field with his speed, as a vertical threat as well, which, which having that type of versatility in your route tree is huge in the NFL, because in the NFL, they really don't like specialists at the receiver position. They want guys that can go do everything. Certain guys are better at certain things than others, but for the most part, the NFL doesn't really take a flyer on just jump ball receivers or just red zone threats. You look at the NFL, and now they're taking guys that are versatile, that have good all-around skill, they have all-around skill sets. They can run, they can run short routes underneath, they can go vert. Jaylin Noel is that guy. Obviously a little bit smaller at 5'10", 5'11", maybe 6 foot on a tall day, but somewhere in there. But the NFL has not shown any hesitation towards getting guys on the field if they know they can play. He's tall enough where he's not going to get, where he's not going to just get completely lost. I mean, Hollywood Brown, if you look for the Kansas City Chiefs, he's like 5'8", something like that. Tyreek Hill's like 5'7", 5'8". He's not very big. The NFL will find a spot for you if you're worthy, and Jaylin Noel is every bit of that. For the most part, I see a lot of stuff that see him as a potential day 2 pick. Second, third round, probably third round, somewhere in there, which, if you're a third round, it could be anywhere second to fourth round. Couple interesting ones. Actually, there is one first round projection here from Brett Whitefield from Fantasy Points. I don't know much about him. He's the only one that has Jaylin above the second round. But it's worth noting that he's at least got in there. Texans would be an interesting fit, especially with another former Iowa State receiver, in Xavier Hutchinson already there and is a regular player in their rotation. It'd be interesting. Another target for CJ Stroud. I think that would honestly be a very good fit for him. Couple other options. San Francisco in the third round. I love this. Not only because Brock Purdy is the quarterback there, and an Iowa State guy throwing to an Iowa State guy in San Francisco is obviously very enticing to me. But San Francisco needs receivers. They at some point they're going to move on from Deebo Samuel. It might be this season. Might be this offseason. They need to get Brock targets, and especially ones that are durable. And Jaylin Noel has shown to be a very durable player. I really like that pick. If the 49ers were to get him in the third round, I would love that. Now, the 49ers need help on the offensive line. They could probably use some help at corner as well. But I would imagine that's probably where they'll go for the first couple rounds. But if you can grab a guy like Jaylen Noel in the third round to give Brock another target, I love that. And Brock did play with Jalen's freshman year and Brock's senior year, so they're familiar with each other. I think that would be awesome for Jaylin. Um, the Eagles are an interesting option. They could, they're a pretty well-rounded team as it is. The Eagles really have little to no weaknesses. Maybe they could use a pass rusher and they'll take that in the first round. But getting another guy, getting a slot guy to pair with AJ Brown and Devontae Smith, I think would be an awesome fit right there as well. Titans, the Titans are just kind of bad. They need a lot of help everywhere. So he'd probably get some early playing time with the Titans, but no surprise. I'd love to see him play with Brock in San Francisco. I'd love to see him play with the Eagles. For any of you that have not seen Jaylen Noel play, you can see him right here in the slot. And this shows you a little bit of his route versatility here as well. So, but you can see back here in the double end, you can't see it on TV, but bang. I mean, Jalen's gone. Nobody's catching him. This is a guy that he can hit the deep ball. I obviously used him in deep catching situations a lot this year. You can see this move right here. Bang, right there. Using great leverage. Xavier Wampa bit in on a little bit. Jaylin made a great move, planted his foot and hit that post, and it was a great ball from Rocco. That kind of thing is where you can really use him. He's got exceptional speed. And you can also use him coming around here. This was on the first play of the game against North Dakota State. That's a great contested catch. Horrible throw by Rocco Becht. Don't ever throw that again. But that is a really, really nice catch in traffic by Jaylin. If you look at this, there's just no space, and he just catches it right in the middle there. That's exceptional. And he did that a number of times throughout the year. He made a big catch against UCF, which actually we might be getting ready to see here right now. So he's going to go here. Rocco's going to find him. Yep, right there. So you just burnt guys, made a nice catch in traffic there. That was late in the fourth quarter when Iowa State was down. So a big catch right there. Iowa State used him a lot in these vert situations because he was just faster than everybody. But early in his career, especially, he was a prototypical slot receiver, and I think he'd be fit great there for any NFL team that wants to take him. So this is Jaylen Noel. I think when you look at the combine, the places he can make up, I don't know if there's really a lot of ground to make up. His tape's good. He's kind of a known commodity as an athlete. People know he's a good athlete. If he were to put up, just like every skill position player, putting up a good 40 time is never a bad thing. But I think at the combine, if he can be in the 4.4s or lower, which I don't think should be any issue. I would expect to see him in the 4.4s as far as his 40 time goes. And really in his route running, I want to see some good fluidity, some good flexibility in his hips, which I think you'll be able to see. He just runs really good routes. He's got great hands. And it's a guy that you can put on special teams right away. He returned punts at Iowa State and did a very, very nice job this past season returning punts. For the first couple of years where he was returning punts, Iowa State was not particularly aggressive, but he just does a nice job. He's a good run blocker for his size. This is a nice pick. If any NFL team that can grab him and use him, in the third round, fourth round, something like that, nice little vert catch right there. I think he's going to be a nice fit. But he fits perfectly in just about any modern NFL offense. I think he's going to be a really, really nice pro. So the next up is going to be his running mate, which was Jayden Higgens. Another receiver out of Iowa, another receiver that was part of this, that was part of the 1,000-yard tandem for the Cyclones this year. He was a transfer after his sophomore season at Eastern Kentucky. Iowa State pulled him in as a 2-year transfer. So he played last year and this season. And, to begin last season, he had the same kind of transition period that a lot of guys do when they're coming up from the G5 into a Power 5 school, where it takes a few games just to get up to speed, get a feel for the pace of the game, for the physicality of the higher levels. And, but by the time you get to the middle of the season, he is looking like a number one wide receiver that every team in America would want. And he was great. He was amazing. I want to say he put up I have to look up the exact number, but he put up basically a 200-yard performance against Memphis in the Liberty Bowl last year. And he just did a oh, just a phenomenal job establishing himself as just the dude over the last couple of seasons. This year, I would say would use him all over the field. They'd use him in vert situations. They'd use him underneath. They'd use him in crossing routes. And he was just a guy that did such a good job getting open. He's one of those guys, if you're looking at a player comp, he's very good in the open field too. But what you look at his tape, you see a dominant. This is a guy that's got the skill set of a number one wide receiver. We'll take a look at that here in a second. Right now, Jayden Higgens is kind of in that same day two ish category with Jaylin Noel, but I think his size at 6'3", 215, 220 gives him some more upside with NFL teams. They see him, he can be an effective run blocker, on the perimeter. He can do a lot of different things. His skill set, he's not just a jump ball guy. He's not just a red zone guy. You can run him across the middle of the field. Iowa State did it all the time. Um, he has a few more first round grades. The Bills, and primarily here for the Bills and the Lions, as recently as last month had a first round for the Lions there. Recently, the last month or so, you see mostly round 2, round 3 grades. I think that's probably I don't think he'll be a first round pick. I think he's got the skill and the talent to do it, to justify being picked in the first round, but um there's a few decent receivers here. It's not a super strong draft, but there's a few decent receivers here. This is a guy that I think he can fit on virtually any team with a quarterback that can throw a back shoulder fade, or that can effectively throw a ball to the back shoulder, which in the NFL is most guys. But I think the Bills, I mean, I would love him to be a Bill. They need to get weapons in there for Josh Allen, and this is a guy that's got the skill set and the size to be a full-on number one wide receiver for a team like the Bills that will get him in space, and a guy like Josh Allen that'll get him the ball exactly where he needs to go and can get it to him downfield. Um, Lions are interesting. I mean, so that's a little bit more of a downhill running team. So it's a definitely different style offense that I think Jayden would be good in. I think he'd be a better fit in Buffalo just from a personnel perspective. Obviously, the Lions already have him on St. Brown, and so they've got a couple good receivers there. So he'd be probably more like the 2 or 3. But I think in Buffalo, if they took him there, he'd have a shot to be pushing for that. To eventually be that number one wide receiver, which for a guy like Josh Allen would be awesome. The Ravens would be an interesting fit too. Lamar's been, as he's gotten older, Lamar is throwing more and running less, so they're becoming a little bit more of a vertical offense. But they've got a stable running game there with Derrick Henry, at least for the next couple of years. Him being in Los Angeles there, their quarterback situation's not super certain for the future because Matt Stafford's getting older, but and if he even decides to come back to LA. But that, obviously Sean McVay is an offensive guru. That's a guy that'll be able to use Jayden Higgens, and Jayden Higgens would obviously be back a couple, be behind Puka Nacua for sure. Probably Cooper Kupp. He wouldn't be asked to be the number one wide right away. So that would be an interesting one there too. Plus, as of right now, anyways, former Iowa State offensive coordinator now is Nate Scheelhaas is now an offensive analyst for the Rams. So there's some familiarity there with the coaching staff. Nate will know how to use Jayden Higgens. So that's interesting there. Some other teams here I think would be a fine fit. I would really hate for him to go to the Browns. The Browns have not had a receiver do well there in a long, long time. Steelers could be an interesting one as to grab Jayden along with to go across from George Pickens. I think that would be a very interesting fit for him in Pittsburgh. But man, give me the Bills all day. If the Bills can grab him in the second round, man, that'd be fantastic. So let's look at Jayden's tape just a little bit. Obviously going back to this Iowa game, because this one right here is the first. I think this is a great example of kind of the first major way that Jayden can be an impact player at the NFL level. And I know I said he's not just a red zone threat, but he is an exceptionally good red zone threat. You look at here, this back shoulder throw. I'm not sure exactly how many he caught, but Jayden Higgens has a pile of touchdowns on these back shoulder throws. He's virtually unguardable. You watch this here. The cornerback actually does a really nice job in coverage. But unfortunately, Jayden Higgens is just better. And that's just kind of how it goes. He's a guy that even in the NFL, he's going to match up physically very well with a lot of NFL corners. right there. Another thing, he's very good at tracking the ball mid-flight. Yeah, even that ball was a little just a shade underthrown, but it was really kind of intentionally underthrown here too. But you watch him, beautiful move, get some separation on the outside, and that box out in the end zone. He's just unguardable that way. If a cornerback's sitting off and not pressing him at the line, I'm not sure how you even guard that. Um, just doesn't he does a nice job after the catch. He's got enough speed to turn it upfield and get yards, catching it up the middle of the field. This is a guy you can line up inside, outside, do whatever you need to do. Rocco's going to find him here on a nice ball. Good ball by Rocco, really. Um, but nice job by Jayden Higgens there in the end zone. Let's see if I can get a. I didn't get another shot here, but you put him on a one-on-one, one-on-one here. He didn't burn the corner, but he wasn't necessarily trying to. But he was just nice outside shoulder there. He's got the size to get up and make about any play you need him to. Right there, more in the end zone. Just if it's a standard 6 foot 6'1" type corner, physically they just can't match up with him. And even right there, he burnt the corner. He can do a lot of different things. Catch balls over the middle, catch him on the outside. He can fit in about any offense that wants to use him and wants to get him the ball. Nice throw by Rocco there too. But you can see you can use him all over the field. I think this is a guy that if you can grab in the second round, you're ecstatic because he's probably, honestly, frankly, he's probably a first round talent. It's just a matter of, it's really just a matter of team need. Because he's not a top 10 pick or anything like that, but he'd be a back end of the first round guy. So, and the back end of the first round, you already have teams that usually have good players already, and it's just mostly team need at that point. But gosh, I would love to see the Bills grab him. Um, I don't think the 49ers, I think the 49ers would rather have some speed, but 49ers could use a weapon. Eagles could use another weapon. The Dolphins will have to replace Tyreek probably or potentially. So lots of places for Jayden Higgens to land. I think he's a really interesting player. I think he's going to be a very successful NFL player, and he can be a number one wide receiver for anybody too. So